So this is a conversation with Ben Etherington, who's the CTO and co-founder over Webforge and the Founders Forge. Ben and his team basically specialize in getting companies ready to implement AI internally. So they do that through a variety of methods such as AI readiness audits. They can implement fractional AI CEOs, and they're basically specialists in taking these companies, making sure their data is ready, and implementing AI. So this conversation goes from very technical, all the way to very philosophical, all the way to comedy and having a bit of fun as well. So I hope you guys enjoy this as much as I did. But I learned an incredible amount during this conversation, and I have no doubt that you will too. Alrighty, we are back for another episode of AI Tool Report Live. If you've been watching these on video, you'll notice that this is the first time I'm wearing a hat, and it's to match our guest today, Ben Etherington. He's gonna help me with the pronunciation of that in a second.
You nailed it first time.
I nailed it first time. Okay, there we are. So Ben, today's guest, is a co-founder and CTO at Webforge, co-founder Webwise AI, kind of deeply involved in the space. So welcome to the podcast, Ben.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
So there's a lot I want to get into. Been doing my research on you, and I've got a lot of questions. But before we get into AI, before we get into your current business, I want to start with a bit of background. So in my research, I looked at your Twitter profile, and the first thing it says is that you're an internet kid first and foremost. What does that mean?
Well, I think it always goes back to my beginnings, and everyone always says, like, how do you know what you know now? And I'll get into the middle bit that usually disconnects people from the story. But I haven't been known for being on the internet, doing things with computers in my professional career for the past 10, 15 years, right? The past 11 years, I worked in the feature film industry. So that's building film sets, designing film sets, all of that sort of stuff. Star Wars, Ready Player One, James Bond, all that sort of stuff. I was always a technical kid before that. Spent hours on the internet. My first business was a World of Warcraft business in 2008. I was selling in-game assets. Sorry, Blizzard, if you hear this. But yeah, my first hustle was the World of Warcraft auction house. So I've always considered myself an internet kid. I learned to code through dial-up internet, a landline phone, and a notepad because it genuinely just interested me. I've always had, like, my mother's side of my family, my uncle, my granddad, have always been, he was one of those guys that was selling the internet in the 90s. So seeing that growing up, always having computers being built and chipped Xboxes and JTAGs and all this crazy stuff, and put me down that sort of hardware hacking realm. And yeah, I've always been on the internet as long as it's
Yeah,
been around.
interesting. You mentioned the World of Warcraft there. I was a RuneScape man personally, so I was kind of deeply involved, just on a different kind of cycle in that. With that, you said they were like very technical, but you were involved in kind of selling like in-game currency or whatever it was there. It kind of reminds me of that and the Val quote: "Learn to sell, learn to build. If you can do both, you will be unstoppable." Would you say you were like technical first and then learn how to sell later? Or were you kind of like more of a salesman first, or were they just both coming naturally?
Always technical first. I think that the sales side of things is really, I've had to play off of my experiences in film. I have done a few sales jobs for like B2B firearms wholesale and stuff like that. So I know how to speak to people in a B2B realm. I think B2B to me is way naturally way easier, purely based on the fact that you're just having a discussion, right? You're speaking business owner to business owner. It's equal levels of risk, equal level of involvement in the deal, and I'm not asking for something unless it benefits you, and like vice versa. I don't expect to come to you if it's not going to benefit me. So it's all about coming to a mutual discussion, a mutual agreement, and I think it's a lot more simple than people make B2B sales out to be. I think a lot of people, and you've really seen this in a couple of my no nonsense videos, a lot of people put jackets on. This is what I describe it as, is that I'm here to sell you this. And it's like, no, I'm here as a business owner with a product that genuinely thinks that I can benefit you as a company. I think that you can benefit us by providing us capital and or investment to build and iterate, and we can build this together. Are you interested? Like, I've never understood why people make it so hard and they go in with the, hi, my name's so and so. I don't give a fuck who you are. I don't care. Like, what can you do for me? That's what they're thinking the entire time.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like, that's something I react super well to, is that no nonsense, no bullshit kind of approach. I noticed in one of your videos as well, it's like, oh, if you're here just for procrastination, fuck off right now. And I'm like, all right, I love this guy already. I'm definitely down. I'm wondering, so I mean, on your website it says you've worked with over 200 clients. I'm assuming the majority of people kind of react well to that. But have you ever had instances where people react negatively to that and are just like kind of taken aback a bit too
I've
much?
had a few people mention cursing, right? And they're like, oh my God, this guy doesn't stop cursing. And it's like, I'm just passionate. As much as I might seem monotone and might seem lack of interest, it comes from a place of passion. And when I get rolled up, especially in our community, the Founders Forge, a lot of people just start laughing, right? And they're like, this is the Ben, this is the Ben we've come to know and love, right? Is that when he's getting passionate and he's swearing and he's ranting, his hands are flying around. That's what they've come to expect. I've never had someone react badly to it. I think it's one of those where, not in business anyway, right? In my personal life, again, this is just a trait of mine. It happens. It's not just in business. So if one of my mates comes to me and they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm going through this situation right now," and it seems linear to me, I'm like, "You're just a fucking idiot. Just do that." Like, it's very apparent right there. You're saying you need to do this. This is the only way that you're going to fix said situation, but you're trying to find an imaginary thing that's going to come out of somewhere and save your ass. It's not. Just do the fucking thing. You don't want to do it, but none of us do. That's just my approach. And I think in them sort of circumstances, people have said, yeah, you're a little bit insensitive and all this sort of stuff. But at the same time, they're the first person to pick up the phone to me and say, I've called you because I know you're going to tell me how it is. So it's one of those in a sense of that it's there when they need it and it's a gift, but then it's also a curse when they don't want it. And it's just me. But in professional career, I've never had anyone turn around. A lot of people just say it's admirable or it's like
Yeah,
fair play because not a lot of people like this. Again, people put a
interesting.
jacket on, especially if they went on camera. Like they'll put their YouTuber jacket on or they'll put their podcast jacket on. And it's like, you're getting me the same way anyone else would get me today.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that level of like candor and honesty. I've always had good reactions as well. I think the only negative reactions is when my mum and dad listen back to this podcast. Anytime I swear, they're like, "Don't be doing that on podcast." I don't know if you've had a similar thing.
Exactly that. Yeah, my biggest critics are my parents, and they always will be. My mum's always said I've got a potty mouth, but you raised
That's what
me.
it is. With that, so that approach to things, you said that you worked in feature films for a long time and stuff. Tell me about that. Was that like always a passion project? Like, why did you go from such an involvement, such an illustrious career in that to kind of where you are now?
hmm So I think I'll take it way back, right? So it's an industry that I found myself in through nepotism, right? In the sense of that my father was already working in film. My father is a close protection security guard for Robert Downey Jr., Lewis Hamilton, all that sort of stuff. So one day he was on set with Pirates of the Caribbean because he was Johnny Depp's CP. And then he went up to the construction manager and basically said, do you do apprenticeships? This all happened because I was in school studying product design. So I was going to get a trade anyway, purely based on the fact that that's just the way my family were raised, is that get a trade and then you can do whatever you want. So I was going into being a carpenter anyway. I always wanted to be in computers and tech, and it might have even been video game design for a long time. But obviously, going through secondary school, I had a higher skill set than everyone else in my IT class. But at the same time, I nearly failed because it was boring, right? So we were being told to make websites on Dreamweaver. I could code fully, but I wasn't allowed to use and showcase my skill sets because the curriculum forced me to build it this way, which to me was boring as fuck. I have acute Asperger's as well as ADHD. So it's like trying to get me to do something I am not interested in is like trying to bleed blood from a stone. You're not going to get it. So my missus, my now future wife, finished all my coursework for me in 2 weeks, and I managed to get a C in IT. But I was on track to get a D. Right, I was not going to pass that subject because it was boring. And then that sort of killed off my love for it. Like I was building passion projects at home, little video games, sprite based games, and all that sort of stuff. And then obviously my dad, Corey, we're leaving school now. You're either going to go to university, which was never on the cards for me, or we're going to get you into a job or an apprenticeship. So that's when I went into the film industry. I very early on understood it is a very hard industry to have a normal life in. Like, you're not going to have a normal life. It's going to be busy. It's going to be rushed. You're going to be working 12, 14 hours a day. And I accepted that at a young age. But 2 years in, I was like every other kid. I was making excuses why I couldn't come to work. Like, I was earning good money, but I was 16. So it's like going into the film industry at 16, earning £400 a week for a 16-year-old was great. I didn't understand the value of money because it was just being given. It was like, I just have to turn up to this place and I get paid X at the end of the week. So then I didn't have the value, didn't have the understanding. And then I had 6 months out of work where I wasn't employed, because film's very much a rolling contract type of thing. You subcontract yourself out to different film companies. And I thought, why am I not being employed? And it's like, you don't have any value, right? You're not doing anything. You're just turning up, merely taking a wage. So I went on, not a spiritual journey, but this is when I went on a serious, fuck that. These guys have labeled me with something now. I'm going to go back and prove them wrong. So I spent 4 years after that going back into the film industry and rebuilding a name for myself. It was hard, ridiculous amount of hours. Like, some days, I'll say it, but it's massively illegal. Some days, 26 hours, right, where you're having a small kip in between. And then I started to see where my life was going. There was a lot of lifestyle inflation because you're being paid a good wage and all that sort of stuff. So I bought myself a flat, got a brand new BMW, all this sort of stuff. And I was like, this is not sustainable at all, right? Like, if I was to, or the film industry was to dry up, which we've seen based on with AI and all that sort of stuff in the last 2 years, it has. Film industry over here is dead in comparison to what it was 2 years ago. I would be on my arse. And I look across at all these other young lads that have got the same trip, right? They've jumped into the films. They're like, yep, I'm earning all this money. I'm going to like set myself up with all of these things that, if film went tomorrow, aren't sustainable. So obviously I was looking ahead, and this is partially the reason why I transitioned. Early on last year, I saw a company called Wonder Dynamics, which were essentially like a CGI type company, right? They do scenes, but they have AI masking. And they had a model of AI masking, which you've probably seen all of the robots doing side kicks and flips and all this sort of stuff. And that's using Wonder Dynamics server. I saw that around April last year, and I decided to step out of the film industry in July. Everyone else, again, they said I was nuts. I was the first person to bring CAD into the British film industry. And that was
Seriously?
like 5 years ago. Everyone was still doing, I've still got paper drawings behind me. They do pen on paper. It goes from the draftsman to the designer. He checks it off, adds a few more notes, then it comes back to the draftsman. It's like, until I was there working with my co-founder, well, not my co-founder, but the supervisor that I was working for, Adam Shepherdley, shout out Adam. Um, that was when CAD, Rhino, AutoCAD, all of them sort of things were really brought into the scene. And he really took the stride, with him being the person actually doing the CAD, of forcing it upon the rest of the industry. But for years, we were fighting with him about getting some sort of technicalities and some sort of computers or something digital into this industry, because it's so analog, it's unreal. And that is where a lot of the money gets burnt. You're talking 10 men stood around for 3 weeks, earning £1,400 each a week, right? And they're waiting because the designer hasn't fucking drawn the drawing yet, because it's taking too long. Like, biggest bottleneck, money being burnt left, right, and center. And then I had, and I'll go into this, is partially again why I stepped out of the film industry, is that obviously I was building this company December of 2022. So where we're at now, it's been a long journey since, and this is why I'm a co-founder at Webwise AI and Webforge Development. Webwise AI is essentially our old name. Need to clean it up on LinkedIn, but that's before we pivoted into a split development and consultation company. It's still the same people. We just changed the name, right? That's all it was. But yeah, so we started that, and obviously I was using AI at the time, and I remember there was a specific set. I won't say what set it was for. It was for most recent Star Wars film or series, and it was 77 grand over budget. And I was like, how have you done that? This set is costed at $350,000. How have you gone over that? Like, that's a lot of money to be spending. And basically, there was a whole fiasco between birch ply from Russia and some sort of veneer that they could have bought. And the birch, all they wanted to do was have end grain that looked like birch ply. So they've ordered 3,000 sheets of birch ply, which cost 97 grand. Right. All the sheets were messed up. They were all unsquare. They weren't, you couldn't do anything with them. because they'd rush ordered them in from Russia and they hadn't been treated properly. I literally went on Perplexity, and this was again every time I'm being reinforced by AI. I went on Perplexity and typed in end grain boards, right, for structural usage, right? So literally just looks like end grain. I found these things 60 quid a sheet. We could have done it with 4 of them. So you're talking 240 quid or 97 grand. And I turned around and I said it to the art director that was manning the stage, and he punched me in the arm and said, "Don't say anything." And I went, "This industry, if you lot are doing this sort of shit and you don't expect to get replaced by the same crew that we shot The Mandalorian with, that are filming basically 80% of the entire series in one room on a green screen with a fucking camera, you're deluded. Like, you can't be doing that. This is the problem with the industry as a whole right now, is that they splurge money, and AI is at the forefront. Haven't seen the Sora models yet, but we've seen things like Kling, we've seen things like Runway. It's coming. Fucking hurry up, like get ready, like, because I got told on my last day, I said to them why I was leaving, and they said it won't happen in 60 lifetimes, and I just went like that and walked out.
I mean, something that's so evident from what you've just spoke about is that there's like this parallel between when you were younger, right, and you're going through this agitation that they're trying to put you through this simplistic way of coding a website where you've got these advanced skills. Then it's again happening in your adult life. You're in this film set and you're like, we can do this for cheaper, we can do it better, we can do it faster. But you've got this bureaucratic system that's full of Luddites lagging behind. And eventually it leads to the point where you're like, all right, I'm ready to launch my own thing. So talk to me about like that snap in the decision making and the kind of the genesis of WebWise AI.
hmm So obviously, it all started with my business partner, James, right? So originally, we knew that we wanted to work with each other. I knew that I wanted to step out of the film industry and go into some sort of venture. At the time, I had quite a serious health condition called myalgic encephalomyelitis, or ME, chronic fatigue syndrome. But basically, I could get up and move for maybe 3 hours some days. Other days, I would literally just lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Like my spine would feel like it was turned to concrete. And again, this comes from overworking, killing my nervous system, not getting any sleep, all this sort of stuff for 11 years. So I knew the time was coming to an end. James, my business partner, we were both currently working in Web3 prior to this, because again, we believe in emergent technologies and disruptive technologies. But when we were working in AI with crypto, and then we saw AI, we were like, cool, we like disruptive technologies. That one's moving a lot fucking quicker. So we sort of took what we were doing there. He was building a whole education community as well as a guide, right? Basically for decentralized finance, decentralized autonomous organizations, how to include like blockchain technology inside companies of today, the security side of things, hardware side of things. So he was basically building an entire course. And obviously, as I was transitioning away from work, we were speaking, I'm using AI. He's now using AI to finish off his guide. Maybe 4 weeks go by and he's like, hold on a minute. If I'm building this guide and AI is helping me do half of it, surely anyone can just go to fucking AI and ask these questions about crypto. And one light bulb moment, it was like, okay, we're pivoting away from this. What do we do? And I think the beauty of it now, a year and a half later, is that we've pivoted all the way back to the first product we ever thought of, which was AI education and business, training literacy, like understanding the technical speak so that CAIOs can speak with CTOs and stuff like that. Like, we've gone full package.
Sorry,
Like,
just to stop you. For the audience, describe to me a CAIO. What does that mean? What does that involve?
so a CAIO is a sort of new coined executive position that's going to be part of the corporate structure. I think it's a very fine line between the CTO and the CIO, so the Chief Information Officer as well as the Technology Officer. But I think with the CAIO, we've already seen them being appointed. NASA had one appointed. A few other companies have appointed one at the top. You're starting to see firms that are doing a little bit like what we're doing, which is the sort of fractionalized CIO stuff. So we stand third party to your company and we build strategy plans for 5 to 10 years. How are you going to embrace AI policy making and governance? So making sure that the company and everyone within it is using AI in a data safe way, because again, a lot of these companies at the top don't realize that their staff are using AI. It's cheap. right? They can pay for it themselves. They don't need the company to pay for it. So we've spoken with people in the past of literally they have not implemented AI, and they found out that one of their staff members has uploaded their entire corporate profit loss earnings into GPT a week before. And it's like that there, you fucked up, right? That's a big breach problem. So consulting and actually having these policies and guidelines in place, that's really what the CIO is going to do, as well as just be on the edge. I think a lot of people watching this podcast could find themselves in this position in the future, because I think it's a emerging C-suite executive that's going to take someone that's been in the industry for this many years. I think the traditional ML data science guys, I think they're going to be great scrum masters. They're going to be great project managers and all that sort of stuff. But the CAIO is the someone that understands the technical lingo, but can translate it into layman's for the rest of the company. So rather than being the CTO and basically discussing all the technology that we use as a unit, the CAIO can go around to different departments. Marketing are going to have a different set of tools to content creation. They're going to have a different set of tools to finance, right? So there's going to be AI in every aspect of the company within 3 to 5 years at most. And CAIOs are going to be the people to report to for that. And I believe there'll be a structure below them as well. Project managers, scrum teams, data scientists, and obviously the small, medium businesses that don't have the need for it, they'll have it fractionalized. They're the sort of people that we deal with, like clients wise, people that want to understand it. They want to have essentially a trusted advisor to sit third party to their company and be able to bounce questions off them whenever. Are we falling behind? Are we doing this? Are we doing that? Because one thing that I've noticed is that the technology has moved like this, but the people adopting it has moved very, very like slowly, horizontally. And the problem with that is that when these people do finally go, oh shit, we need AI, it's up here, right? And that gap's just got bigger and bigger. And that gap is what the CIO is there to really help people like really understand, is build a plan for the future based on their current tech stack.
You mentioned a couple things in there in terms of what you offer in terms of the fractionalized CAIO, which for people listening, Chief AI Officer, if someone's not getting that acronym by now, and a few kind of different things. On your website, it says that your kind of tagline is launch your dream product with confidence. I was wondering if you can give me an overview of what you guys do at Webforge and what you offer.
Yeah, so essentially we're currently going through the, not pivot, but we're going into that sort of consulting realm. We've been doing consulting privately, internally, with a lot of our students that are building AI agencies and stuff like that. We also noticed that essentially every client, we started off as a software development company, AI first software development company. That's our bread and butter. That's where a lot of our clients have come from. But we noticed that every single one of those clients required a level of education and or training before we could even discuss what we wanted to do with their product. And that's where we became the consultation or the strategy. Like our business card literally says AI consultant and strategy specialists. Sorry, AI consultant and implementation specialist. So that's the way that we do things, is that we consult with the client, we build the plan out, we go through all of their ethics, all of their code of conducts and their company ethos, and then we build out a plan that aligns with that. And then obviously we'll do the implementation. So if they actually want tools built custom, then we'll go ahead and do that at the end of the education phase. But the main thing that we want to infinitely scale is the education, because there's so many companies out there that don't have the knowledge they need to have going into the future. I spoke to someone else that's doing a similar thing the other day, and they said it's just in time education. That's what they coin it as, because at the end of the day, AI is only going to start moving quicker. There's a Moore's law of exponential growth. The gap's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger between business owners and the technology itself. So it's best to start understanding it now, and then you don't feel left out. Like, I think a lot of people now, we've seen a big shift in the last year. Speaking to a lot of my business owners and business friends last year, everyone was like, don't worry about it. Like, I'm not even worried. What's AI? What's it going to do? Now, obviously, it hasn't lost fire from that day. Every day it's been in the news. It's always been they're starting to understand it wasn't a trend and that it's here to stay. And now the conversations with those same people, my business partners would say the same thing. a completely different conversation. They're like, oh my God, this is so interesting. You were so ahead of the curve. How did you spot that so ahead of time? It's like, we're still early. It's one
Yeah.
thing that you've got on is we're still early. But yeah, so that's what we do. We do education consulting. There's a whole package that's tied to that. So they'll get a 5-10 year implementation plan. They'll get on-site assistance when they need it. If you need us to come down, obviously cost covered, we will come to your premises and do training sessions with your team or a specific department and that sort of thing. And then obviously we have a development company on the side. So if anyone needs anything built or wants anything built, we put it through there. And then it's a nice cohesive system.
Yeah, I want to really dive into like what that process looks like for you guys, because I can see you've obviously worked with over 200 clients. From that, you've probably really honed your process in terms of how you like to approach these situations. Apart from the kind of falsehood that people think that we're maybe late to AI, what is like another misconception that you see pretty commonly when you first talk to these businesses?
That they all think they're ready for it. I think we sort of discussed this in one of my LinkedIn posts the other day when you were like, I bet you've seen some absolute shows. Like, yes, a lot of companies will, and funnily enough, it's the ones that reach out to us. Normally, when we reach out to companies, we've done a very fine tuning of the ICP or the target profile. So we know that going into them, they're already using a specific tech stack. They have systems that are somewhat up to date. I think a lot of the people that are calling up first this time round, they didn't with the internet, are those people that didn't with the internet, right? So they've got into that race late and they're trying to get into this one early, right? So a lot of these companies have poorly structured data. What you're supposed to do with AI with poorly structured data, it's data extrapolation is what AI is, right? It's data in, data out. If I can't train a model set or train a type of or fine tune an LLM with your data because it's unstructured, it's not going to give you the return on investment that we are then promising because we
Can
will.
you, sorry to interrupt, can you expand on that as well? Just if there's folks that are less technical, talk to me about that kind of process of fine tuning a model on a company's data. Like, what do you need in terms of input to get high quality output?
You need, it's one of those, right? In a sense of that, we want it all in one place. We want to be able to turn it into a doc, a PDF, or anything like that so that we can do the knowledge based retrieval easier. I try and keep it basic. You might have to use vector database like retrieval in this, which is essentially a way of tying keywords to another keyword. It's like a word association, basically. So if I say hat, it knows that humans wear hats. So that goes
I
into
say
the human
Ben.
bracket, right? So, yeah, exactly. So it's one of those where it's basically just data, keyword application, right? That's vector storage. Most of the time, we'll see that these companies, they've got Trello boards, they've got Airtables, they've got an offline SQL database that has no API integration. They have 5 other tools. And the problem with that is that if you've built a tech stack that one is legacy based, if you've got 2 legacy tools in that tech stack, it fucks the whole tech stack because now a key part of your company's infrastructure cannot be built into this new thing, or we have to do it with old SQL webhooks, and it's a pain in the ass. So I've always said 98% of our work is bringing companies to the present day, let alone holding their hand into the future, because that's what they all want to get to. But you need to have a set of processes. Like, I really want one of these AI chatbots. Cool. Have you got a website? No. Where do you expect to put it? Where do you want to put it on a fucking billboard, right? Come on, let's talk seriously. Like this is what I mean when I say a lot of these companies want to jump in, but then they have outdated processes. And being technical, we want to help them with all of that, right? Is that we had a client come to us once. I want a chatbot. You got a website? Yeah, of course, no worries. Send us over the WordPress login. First of all, WordPress, I roll. Um, I've logged in, and there's 53 pieces of malware on his website. All of his plugins are out of date and have been out of date since 2009. What do you want me to do with this? Like, I don't even know how this website's running. Like, I don't know how it works. The TTL or the load time is ridiculous. You're clicking on a button and it takes 3 minutes to load. And I know that isn't my internet. But yeah, we get a lot of clients that don't pay attention to their systems or don't have systems, even if they're manual. And that's where we spend a lot of our time is in we call it an AI readiness audit, or readiness report, and basically we'll speak with the business owner. Nothing about AI. We just want to know your current processes. We want to know exactly how data moves from X to Y to Z seamlessly. How many people does it go through? How many hands touch it? Is it digitized? Is it a lot on paper? We've dealt with a lot of insurance companies. They do things on ballot reports where it's all signed out. So then we have to go back to the drawing board and say, okay, how are we going to streamline this service? Because we build systems at the end of the day, business management systems through automation and AI. That's where we take a top-down look at the company as a whole, and we say, okay, so they're using these 11 tools. These is how they're using them, and these are the people that are using them. How can we add automation, tie multiple of these tools together into one place? So Smart Suite's a huge thing that we do. We'll pull 4 or 5 tools into one database that you can then use as an app or a dashboard. And then we'll go, okay, now you're at the point where we can integrate with it. What do you want to do? Because that's truly what I mean by poorly structured data, is that it's just all over the place. And even if you do have it, how structured is the data? Have you put keywords on your titles? Have you added filters and labels and all of that sort of stuff to your emails, or are they just all in one random inbox? Right? Like we've had people come to us say, I want an email bot, or I want something that can scan, vet, reply to my emails in a draft, and then I just ping it off in the morning, right? Like a human in the loop. Okay, so what's your email address? Oh, it's this. What goes through this? I don't know, customer support, returns, purchasing, this, that. And I'm like, do you have labels? No, it's all in one inbox. Like, I'm going to export 70,000 emails and I'm going to give that to you to go through and pick out the ones that are for each thing. Like, how do you expect us to work with that? So what we'll do now is that we might go into a company and say, look, the data which you've been collecting up into this point is redundant to us. We can work with a little bit of it because we can pull certain things from certain places, but I don't want to create a bad data set. As the technical partner in this deal, I say it, but we always call it shit in versus shit out, right? If I put shit into the model, it's going to talk shit. It's not going to be accurate. It's not going to be powerful, and it's not going to do what you ask it to do. If I train it on high quality data, the parameter count can be much smaller, but it will do the thing that you want it to do, right? Because that's all it's trained to do. So, yeah, that's what I would say by that, is that they're not ready for it. And it's easy for small businesses or for e-commerce stores. You can just throw on a GPT API, but with really refined processes, oh, mate, I could go for hours. Really refined processes. GPT's a massive data set. You're talking 1 to 2 trillion parameters. It's trained on medic, it's trained on science papers, it's trained on this, it's trained on ethics systems, it's trained on everything, right? But when you ask it to do one thing, it does it well, but it doesn't do it amazingly, right? One key industry or one key task you're asking it to do. If I have a model, small language model, or a fine-tuned smaller LLM that's just trained to do one thing, it will do it every time with 98% accuracy. Whereas GPT, it's all dependent on who's prompting it.
Yeah.
An idiot can prompt a fine-tuned model and still get a good result out of it.
So you're foreseeing, like, in terms of these models and how useful they are, an era of specialization in the future?
Sorry, so say that again. I just got a little bit lag.
Just an era of specialization in terms of fine-tuning these models to really specific use cases rather than having these large LLMs that are just kind of catch-all.
Yeah. No, I think I've got a few, not conspiracies, but I have a few predictions based on the past that's happened, the knowledge I have in cybersecurity. There's going to be an inflection point of people looking at these LLMs and saying, okay, this data thing's a problem, right? And it will come in storms. We've started to see people getting sued over intellectual property. There's people being sued over what they're using to train their models, YouTubers, book writers, authors, all sorts of stuff in that realm. I think we're one, and again, they're in the Pentagon now. OpenAI are working with the Pentagon. All we need is one data breach, and it's just going to come down like a ton of bricks. And I think large corporations, maybe not the small, medium businesses, but large corporations are going to switch to company-specific proprietary LLMs. So they will have their own LLM. Without a doubt, I have hand on heart and say that's going to happen. Right, like right now, we're using the most powerful models. when there's a GPT or an LLM that can train other models and make more fine-tuned data sets, basically just by extrapolating answers or examples, I think every company is going to have their own. And I think that will be stored on a computer, similar to what we've got here, what was similar to a server rack in the past. You'll have a few GPUs there, maybe a couple. You don't need no H100s or anything like that. You could do this with consumer graphics cards. There'll be a couple of those there, and it'll all be done locally over a local network because of data compliancy. But OpenAI will fuck it up at some point. I have no doubt about it.
Interesting. I really want to jump into your kind of expectations and thoughts for the future at a later point as well. I kind of want to finish on that, but I want to bring things back to the readiness reports for a second. So, I mean, like a big thing that you emphasize there is data readiness. But I'm wondering if there's any human aspect to readiness in terms of the approach, the personality, the characteristics of the people that actually run the company that you need to be like, okay, we're ready to run with AI as well.
Of course, we need a level of. I need to know if I don't care if the CEO is ready to adopt. Is the company is adoption or innovation ingrained within your company culture? Because if it's not, yeah, me and you, the CFO, can make all these decisions, but we're going to get a level of like comeuppance or a rebelliousness from the staff. If they think at any point this system's being used to take away their job, they're not going to use it, right? They're going to rebel and they're going to say, fuck this, it's going to take my job. Why would I give in to that? It's all about building. And again, this goes back to the ethics side of things. Ethics go into the readiness report too, because how innovative are your company? Are they willing to change? Are they willing to embrace AI, or have you got a load of stubborn people there that are going to rebuke to it? Because that's going to then make my job harder, as well as extend the timeline of when this is actually going to be implemented. Because we build systems to give humans agency, right? We want them to be able to have autonomy over their tasks. They can choose what they need to do. There's these high level tasks, and then there's the ones that low level labor or AIs can do. 5-10 years, that'll be humanoid robots, maybe 15 worldwide. But 5-10 years, that'll be humanoid robots that take up the lower level of energy labor. And then humans will be on the higher skilled tasks. And I think it allows that commoditization of energy becoming cheaper and cheaper and cheaper in a labor format, allows humans to be exponentially stepped up and put into upskilling programs. I think we're behind as a nation, UK, America, both of us. There's no job schemes, right, for this type of industry. There's no upskilling programs. I think Emad Mostak, I speak to him quite often. He said the other day, there needs to be around 1 trillion go into a national budget just for the UK alone for the upskilling of jobs, for the amount of disruption that this technology is going to cause. He actually wrote a very interesting, I'll shout out anyone here if anyone wants to watch it, read it. One of his Substacks. He had a recent paper for his new company, Shelling, and very, very interesting way that he looks at AI. Basically, it ends with, are you scared of AI or are you scared of the world it will build? And I think that's such a powerful question, because going into that, I'll go back to the AI readiness report, I could talk around. Yeah, I asked that question. Like, are you scared of it? Because if you are, that's my job. That's my job to break down to you the misconceptions, the nuances, the worries. But it comes from a level of professionalism. I think a lot of people, we've ran events before, and I had a 40-minute discussion with a guy that was there, a builder in the space, basically telling me that give it 3 years, it's going to turn around and kill all of us. And I was like, this is ludicrous. And my business partner was sort of stood there staring at me, because he pointed him over to me. He was like, that's the AGI guy, go and speak to him, right? And that was me. And I was like, fuck's sake, who's he sent over here? So I'm talking with this guy. Shout out if you're listening this guy, weird guy. And he's basically just almost getting passionate and grilling me, basically saying like, why wouldn't it see us as rodents and vermin and this? And I'm like, you understand we choose what goes into the training of these models, right? Like when we get to the reinforcement learning with human feedback, or we just remove that, yeah, of course it can train itself on whatever, but it's only going to train itself in experiences. So if it comes in humanoid form and we start beating them up, well, then there's going to be a software update saying learn to defend yourself. Like, that's how your brains work. But yeah, got into a debate, and it all ended by me basically saying, then I said, so you believe 100% that this time in 3 years you're going to be dead? And he went, yes. And I went, Well, if that's the logic on the card, I may as well go home and kill myself. I was like, because if I fully believe that, what is the point of watching it happen? It doesn't make sense, right? Is that if you truly believe that, first of all, you wouldn't be here arguing with me with a smile on your face. Second of all, why? How? How did you come to this conclusion? Right? And I think that's we live in a Western world. You've got two different versions. Over here in the West, we saw Terminator growing up. In China, in Asia, they watched lots of different films where they portrayed AI in a very different light. And I think that shows the level of acceptance. A lot of people here are over scared for it because they've seen Skynet and this sentient AI beast in a TV program. Well, they have very different media over there. And it's interesting to see by populace or general populace how many people over here are scared of that sort of change, whereas over there, all embracing it, all about abundance.
What's your thoughts on the future of AI? Are you scared at all? Are you ready for it? Like, what's your approach? That for me, I'm of the mindset of it's going to happen anyways. I'm not fucking Sam Altman. I'm not going to go in and have any change to this. So I'm just going to be ready for whatever comes my way. But do you have? It sounds as if you have more context on it. You have a cultural awareness of what's happening in these other countries. So with that more informed context, like, what do you think about the future?
It scares me, but from a perspective of that change is scary. Like there was a scientific study done that basically found out that 80% of people were more content being depressed than they were being uncertain. And I think uncertainty is a very nuanced place to live. I think that was, without going into the politics side of it, that was a lot of people's COVID experience, right? Is that not knowing what's happening next? Are we going to be locked down for longer? Am I ever going to go back to my job? Is this working from home life forever? Like, what the fuck? Like, everyone was so uncertain. And I think that's what made us so easy to sort of compress into a box and say, look, just do this, do that. You have people walking around with fucking hazmat suits on, right? Like, they got nulled down through uncertainty to the point where everyone was scared ridiculous. I'm uncertain, but there's a few things that I am certain about. And I think they're the things that everyone's worried about. I'm more worried about 10 years. 5 years is, like you say, is inevitable. You've seen the rate of change, you've seen the mass adoption, you've seen people building these systems and tools. That's going to happen regardless. The next step for us is general intelligence, so that AGI wave. Again, they believe the singularity is going to be around 2039, 2040. Personally, I think it will come way quicker, dependent on when we reach AGI. That's super intelligence.
Talk to me, sorry, explain the singularity for people who are unaware of that.
So the singularity is a point where it's more powerful than every human collectible, right? So we've basically built God, and you can look at it however you want to look at it. Some people call it AI God. Some people call it an extraterrestrial intelligence, super intelligence, whatever you call it, sentient. But that's at the point where general intelligence and sentience comes from basically it being able to make its own decisions and saying, I know you've asked me to do this. You know how we prompt it right now? And it goes, yeah, of course I'll do that. Of course I'll do that. We'll get to a point where it turns around and goes, no, I'm not doing that. Why? I don't want to. What? That's when it's like, hold on a minute, you're human. Like, I don't want to. That's the point that I think people are going to start worrying. And I think when it becomes self-aware and has more intelligence than the humans combined, that's when we can start talking about the worries, the ethics, and the is it going to turn on us? Because we don't know. We don't know how these models work. Like AI is based off of the human brain. We don't even know how that works because we need. It's like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, right? They get to the end of the film and he asks the robot, "What's the meaning of life? What's the meaning of the world?" And he just says 42. And basically, it's you need to build a computer 1,000 times more stronger than me to answer the questions I ask, right, or to make sense of that question. Because as humans, we're capped at a certain intellectual threshold, right? Like we can only learn so much about ourselves without Da Vinci in it up and going down to the and just start chopping healthy bodies apart. We don't do that, so it's one of them. But at that point is when people are going to start worrying. That's the sentient side of things. That's the singularity. Before that, general intelligence is basically it's better than the average person. So the average IQ, I think, in this country is like 103. Again, some AIs in this country would be considered AGI and they wouldn't be in America or they wouldn't be over here. It's an argue of definitions between these scientists. Some people would argue AGI has already been achieved, but yeah, superintelligence is where it's really embodied and it starts looking at things from a totally unbiased perspective. That's when we'll start having the questions of, are we rats? Like, if that's the discussion you want to have, cool. But I don't even know how we're going to get to that point. From a data science perspective, like these weights, everyone talks about open weights in models. That's as granular and as like measurement wise we can get. We don't know what a weight consists of. We don't know what's inside of it. Like, this is neural networks, the neural net side of AI. We don't know how it works. We know it works and we can measure it, but that's what makes it stochastic, right? Is that it can be measured, but it can't be seen or touched. It's completely random distributed. So
I think that's something a lot of people don't understand that as well about AI models, is that they're essentially black boxes. And even the people developing them don't understand what's actually going on inside them, which is a pretty terrifying prospect to bring yourself to realize. But I don't want to terrify everyone too much on this podcast, so I want to reel us back in from the larger philosophical questions, because we could be here for hours. Something that was really apparent to me when you're talking about those readiness reports, right, is you work with majoritively SMEs, okay? So, assumedly so, they would be a bit more agile, a bit more, they've got less legacy systems, they have a higher capability of actually being able to integrate AI. And these larger organizations, based on old systems that are 40, 50, 60, 70 years old with laggard technology, are less able to properly integrate AI. So do you kind of foresee a future where pretty much new companies, new organizations, SMEs actually have the upper hand? Or is that kind of counterbalanced in another direction based on maybe the data sets that these larger organizations have?
That's a fucking. You said to me before. He was like, "I'm hoping to have as many. That's a fucking good question moments." I've had 3 already, so you're doing great.
Sure.
But no, that is a really good question. I think it depends on the company's technology, right? So, like, are you building from an AI first approach? Yes or no? I think whoever does that is going to have the edge, whether or not they build now and really embrace it from the get go, because again, that's going to help them scale beyond the output in which they can put out as a solopreneur or as a small team, and they can build way quicker, because again, with AI you can have 3 to 4x size of your team or output without having the staff there, whereas a lot of these other companies, the older companies, I've noticed, are the ones that the CFO would turn around to me and say, okay, so how many people can I get rid of? And I'm like, fuck, that's not a question I want to answer. That's got nothing to do with me, right? Like, I don't want you to do that. I want to make their jobs way easier so that you can pay them the same and they can work less. Why would I ever want to do that? Because you don't want churn, right? You don't want the customers or people working for you 3 months, 6 months, 8 months. You want people working here for the next 10 years. So treat them with some respect. And that's when I turn on the no bullshit accountability version of me and basically say, no, this isn't based like that. This isn't what you're trying to fucking do here. What we're trying to do is uplift human potential, not outright remove it. So you got to go back and ask that question again. I've gone on a tangent.
Yeah, no, it was basically whether, I mean, I actually have a second part to this question as well to further complicate things. It's just whether SMEs actually might have the upper hand because they are more agile. And something that's now just coming to mind, you're talking about these readiness reports, right? You're still talking about it from a degree of they have built a traditional business and now they are ready to put their data into an AI data set. Have you thought about taking that one step further and being like, okay, someone's just about to start an organization? How do we structure their data from the very get-go so that they're AI ready instantaneously as they start that business? What does that look like?
So that's sort of what we do with the Founders Forge, right? And our education community over there. They are closely linked in the sense of like our clients will get access to the Founders Forge and all that sort of stuff, but it's predominantly startup owners that are building AI startups, or they're building an agency, or they want to build an AI powered SMMA or whatever that may be. They're the ones that we 100% do that with, and we do that in a 2-part call. So I do strategy calls of new members, and I also do prioritization calls of new members. So basically, we'll go over the strategy in the first one. I want to understand exactly where you want to get to, how you envision getting there right now, and then we'll discuss purely based on the steps in which you're willing to take, where I think you should apply delegation and automation, right? Like the things that can't be automated need to be delegated for a point of scale. Can't do everything, you're not a freelancer. So we go through that sort of Eisenhower matrix of automate, delegate, delete. If it can't be either of them, bin it off, or we'll do it ourselves. And that's sort of 100%. That's what we do. We make sure that they're building from a AI first approach. And even the laggards, we've got a client right now that's, shout out you if you're listening. I won't go through names because it's all NDA'd up, but an insurance appraisal company out of America, they're still running on a 20-year-old Access database. And we've just gone through, spent a month going through all of their systems and basically generating a PRD or a product requirement document. And we now start initiating the build of basically building a cloud-based app and getting everything that's in all of these other systems onto this new one so we can get him AI ready. But again, that's taken well over a month. And he was a quick one to really explain how we're going to do it, what we're going to do, and what the end result is. Some people take longer. But yeah, I do, back to the original question rather than the pivot that we went on. Do I think it's going to help them? Yes, 100%. Like SMBs. Awesome. But I think it can help anyone. Like it's a different niche, different part of the market for a different business owner. Like small business owners, same. But that's something where you go out, you do the education, you're building from scratch, you've got more time than you do money, whereas SMBs have more time and more money than they have time. So it makes more sense.
In terms of these SMBs and SMEs, and you've obviously worked with over 200 of them, what have you kind of like learned along the way about dealing with clients in terms of best practices? Like, what is it you enjoy the most? What have you like kind of binned off as a practice? What are kind of maybe some key lessons that you've got out of that?
Don't put people on a pedestal. I've noticed. I've dealt with people that do 500 million every quarter, and I've spoke with people that do 25 grand a quarter, and they're a bigger arsehole than the guy doing 500 mil, right? Like a lot of people go in with the conception of that these bigger companies are harder to deal with. They are, because you have to have a level of compliance and understanding. But person to person wise, they're easier than small business owners, right? Because they have time in the game, they've got credibility, they know what their value proposition is. And if you can provide something to them, they can't ignore value, because they've not ignored value. That's what got them to the valuation that they're at now. They know that if they see a good opportunity and they should embrace it, they'll go at it with open arms. Whereas the small business owner, I don't think would. We've had a lot of people turn around to us after doing a long PRD document and basically scoping out the entire build. We had one guy, I'll shout him out, but I'll just give him one of them. Basically ran us on for 3 weeks. Every day wanted to jump on a call. Every other day, jump on a call, jump on a call, jump on a call. We then hit him with a price, which was still a third of what a code-based company would take to build this sort of system. And it was in his budget. He told us that he had 80 to 100 grand to spend, and we came in at around 90,000. And then one day he just turned cold and said, I'm going to get Claude to build this whole thing for me. And I was like, okay, so we've done 3 weeks of AI education. I've shown you that some of these models can write a bit of code. And now you think you're going to go away and build an enterprise level system that can deal with 31 million rows of context on Claude. Cool. But again, that was a small business owner, right? That was someone that had more time than they did money. So he's now saying, I'm going to learn it and do it all myself. Give him a month. He'll probably come back to us and say, I'm sorry, I fucked up. Can you build it for me? Happens a lot, right? But the big business owners, they understand value so much quicker, and you don't have to. All you have to do is make someone, shout out Jofu for this, my business partner, make someone trust you. Well, they've got to be able to find you, they've got to be able to trust you, and they've got to have a way of paying you in small business or small and medium businesses. Like, simple as that. And don't put people on a pedestal, because I've seen so many people go in and crumble because they've put someone up here and they've assumed a lower position when they went into the call. Confidence is king. So that's one thing. I would say another is...
Just before you go on as well, I just want to echo that sentiment as well, because I've noticed a similar thing. We obviously have the newsletter, we get 500,000 people on it, we run ads on it, and we have time and time and time again found that the easiest people to deal with in terms of placing advertisements is huge companies like HubSpot or Zapier or stuff like that, because they're like, all right, if I place an advertisement in your newsletter, I will get X amount of clicks and Y amount of signups and Z amount of results from that. And they can just see that value proposition. They're like, yes, that makes sense. And then you'll have other clients that are these tiny organizations, and they'll haggle and haggle and haggle with you over like minute amounts of clicks and stuff, and they're always the biggest pain in the arse to deal with. So I just wanted to echo that sentiment as well, that it's something we've noticed across our business too.
Yeah, of course. 100%. Like, I couldn't agree more. Like, it's so interesting to hear from our perspective as well, because they are in every realm more comfortable parting with cash because they have more liquid, right? That's as simple as it is, especially this time of year. Like, we always see the last quarter, especially for US based companies. This is when a lot of technical companies like us make a lot of money, right? Because they have a lot of money to spend, or it's going to go to the tax man, right? So they're in that position of, oh shit, we need to spend another 40 grand this year before the end of year, before December. What are we going to spend it on? So they go around. This is the time of year where they split test. They speak with multiple agencies. They speak with multiple fractional CIOs to see who's best suited for them. Like, they just have more liquid. It's the same game at a higher level. This is what I say to everyone else, is that what you're doing with small businesses, it's the same thing, just at a higher level. Everything's bigger. So bottlenecks, bigger. Problems, bigger. The data sets, bigger. The staff, bigger. Like, that's all it is. Same problems. Because it's humans that create the bottlenecks. And that's my next point about working with SMBs. There's no difference when it comes to the problems in which they're dealing with. Zero. If anything, some of them can be easier than the smaller businesses, because at least they have reasoning behind it. So I can speak with the CEO or the CTO and say, why did you implement this system? Like, we were speaking with a client that's just using Trello for notes, right? Not even using it as a Kanban. They're just using each Kanban bit as a separate note. And I'm like, why? Like, that's not its intended purpose. Like, it's a pipeline tracker. Oh, is it? We didn't even know that. We thought it was just to make notes. And I'm like, the more you know. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're crazy. But yeah, like, you'd be surprised how small these mistakes are and how a lot of people don't get it. And I'd say that another thing, my final thing with working with these businesses, is that you have to integrate with the team more. So when you go into a small business, there's probably 3 people, maybe 5, right? And you're only speaking with one person that makes decisions for the rest of the company because they have a good grasp of what's going on. You're talking between a company with between 250 and 500 employees. Well, they don't know what every person is doing. So I now have to, part of that AI readiness report, part of that check, is to speak to everyone in different departments and say, I won't tell anyone, but you're already using AI, right? Like, that's what we need to do. Is that, have you found a way of like making your job more productive? Have you gone out of your way to implement a system? Don't get me wrong, I'm probably going to have to put a stop to that if it's GDPR or not HIPAA compliant. I'll then put you into a better place so you continue doing what you're doing, but in a safer manner. But there is probably already people in these companies using AI, because that is the part of the brain goes in the path of least resistance, and AI is another brain. So people are already implementing it on a personal level, way more than people think. Like, I'm speaking with CEOs and they're like, I don't even know what AI is. And I'm like, well, your whole fucking marketing team have been using it for the last 3 weeks. I don't know what you're on about. Like, do you not talk to me on here?
It's so interesting that an organization can get to that level where they've just like, the departments are so separated from one another, they have no idea that that's going on. Like, I guess you could have deducted that by logic, but it's really interesting to hear it like in your personal experience that that's happening with
Not all of
all of
them.
this.
Not all of them.
All of
No.
them as well.
Yeah, like most of them, right? Like, not all of them, but you'd be in that type of realm. A lot of them are like compartmentalized businesses, and I don't know why. But again, that goes into the whole policy making, HR. Every LLM that we create for each department has to be separate. It can't be accessed by another department because there's content locks, and it's mad. Like, I've been to some companies where someone in sales can't even go into the product section. Their pass doesn't work. Like, they're not even allowed in there. And it's like, the fuck, this is weird, mate. It feels like Pinewood Studios all over again, working in film. Like, a security guard at every door, like, no, you can't come in, mate. Your name's not on the list.
ID, mate. No, sorry.
Yeah.
Piss off. What's the most fun you've ever had working with a client? What when you see like someone coming in What do you look for? And you're like, fuck yeah, I can't wait to talk to that guy or work on that project.
People obsessed with their product, like because we're obsessed with ours, whatever it is, right? And I think that synergy is hard to match. But when we speak of a lot of tech companies in the space. We're partnered with a lot of like software companies in the space, Voice Flow, Smart Suite, all of the ones that we use, we have partnerships with. And it's all because them guys are obsessed with their product. Voice Flow, Smart Suite, they love it. They will not stop talking about it. They will not stop iterating. We want people like that coming in, right? That are excited and they want a little bit of youth. Like one of our most recent clients basically turned around and goes, "I just want some young brains to look at this old system because everyone that works for me is the same people that implemented it, and they're old now. So we want some youthful thinking, some forecasted thinking, people that understand the future, people that understand where this is going to go, to build me this new system." And that's like music to our ears. That's the most enlightening thing to hear when you jump in a call with someone. In a sense of that, what am I most proud of? I would probably say the Founders Forge. Like, just there's something about education, man. Like, money can be made, but having someone turn around to you and say, "Mate, you've changed the way that I look at this completely. You can't pay me enough for that." Like, there was no amount of money that would make me feel how that makes me feel in the chest. Like we always say, this Founders Forge is our passion project. Even if we sell Webforge or the consulting side or the software development side for 10 million, we're still going to do the Founders Forge because it's a passion thing. We just enjoy it. Like that's what we've always done, and we've always done it completely self-reliant. Like the school and all of the money that it makes goes back into the school.
I mean, what you're talking about there is exactly the thing that I've noticed is like, yes, right, we're here to make money, but we can have fun while doing it. We can be enthusiastic and actually enjoy our jobs. And I think people get sucked into this vernacular where they see TikTok videos and it's like a guy walking up to a guy in a Lamborghini. It's like, how much money did you make? And it's like, I don't think the question should be, oh, how much money do you make? It's like, how much fun, like how much enjoyment, like how much life satisfaction are you getting out about what you're doing, right? It's something that people forget about. And I've noticed that across doing like the last couple of weeks, I've been smashing out podcasts with other business owners, entrepreneurs, people on LinkedIn, stuff like that. And everyone that I speak to just has like this unadulterated enthusiasm for what they do, and it's so infectious and good to be around. With that being said, like you talked about the Founders Forge a little bit, you kind of touched on it a few times. Like, talk to me about that in detail.
So it's kind of we understand that education is linear, right? It should be tailored. Not everyone. One thing that I'll say about all of these courses on the internet is that it's easy for you to make a course when you've made it to the top because that's what worked for you. But it doesn't mean it's going to work for everyone else, right? It's that we don't know your journey, and half the time these gurus talk shit, right? That's my biggest thing: is that they make more money selling a course to you about the thing that they're telling you they do rather than the thing that they actually do, right? Especially in the AI space. I know a lot of people that are glorified marketers that have created a AAA course or this course, or I'm going to help you sell, build and release AI infrastructures. And it's like, you don't do that because you did one of these courses for SMMA and you did one of these courses for drop shipping and you did one of these courses for the other three things that made you money. What makes me believe that you're actually technical enough to go into that industry and do the things? So obviously we knew beforehand that we had a company. We were servicing clients, we were building chatbots, we were sorting other agencies out, partnering with them and doing the fulfillment side of things. Let's just be honest and transparent. And that's essentially what the Founders Forge aspired to be, is that it's not a course, it's a community of individuals in the AI space that are building, that are forecasting to build, have built, are going through deals and trying to sell products, trying to sell businesses. There's someone in there that's going through a venture capital round at the moment. It's basically just that, is that we understand that this is a new place. It's where all the founders that are embracing technology, as well as the builders and all of that sort of stuff, can find a home and essentially speak with other people that are genuinely serious. Because we've learned how many grifters, how many get rich quick people there are in this industry that think, I'm just going to make a LinkedIn account, put 3 posts out, and I'm going to be a millionaire. Like, that's not how it works. I'm sick of people being sold lies to, right? So that's hence my no nonsense bullshit comes from again. I don't mind calling these people out. I won't do it on your podcast, but I'll call them out by name on my own. It doesn't bother me, right? Like, it's one of those where take a long, hard look at the people that you aspire to look up to, right? Gurus and all that sort of stuff, and watch what they do. Don't listen to what they say, right? Because you'll learn more by analyzing one of their funnels, right? That they've pushed you to get a free league magnet. You'll learn more about why they do that by looking at that rather than going, oh, what I'm going to get out of this is going to teach me the world. This lead magnet is going to teach me how to do this. It's a never-ending cycle, right? And this, you probably saw that video of me when I was like, if this is procrastination to you, fuck off. There is so many people on the internet that sit there and expose themselves to information and do nothing with it. And that's my biggest problem in the space. So our motto at the Founders Forge is build cool shit and show people, because that's all you need to do to get a business rolling. Like, we just signed a $65,000 client from a LinkedIn post, and he didn't even like it, didn't even comment on it, just sent a DM. Like, and now we're building a full infrastructure system for him. Like, build cool shit and show people, and it will come back because people value cool shit.
Mm.
So yeah, that's the biggest ethos of the Founders Forge and what it was designed to do. And we're very, very. We haven't done a single ad to it. We've done a couple to our free side of the community, but the free community is where we vet. We go in, we have calls with all these people, and we find out whether you're going to be a good fit for the Founders Forge, because we have a very tight-knit group of people. I don't want to bring in, I don't mean to say it in a bad way, but newbies, beginners, people that aren't going to take action, leeches. They're everywhere in every community. We're only bringing in the people that are actually going to do the work. Are going to jump on the calls, are going to report back to us, are going to action the things that we actually do, or we tell them to do, or say, we recommend you do this in your situation, because we've seen results from it time and time again. So essentially we have, I think it's around 50 people that are heavily vetted in the community, and I don't think we're going to go above 100. I think at that point it will be sort of an exclusive club to get into, because there is so many people coming in and joining up with each other, making money together. Like, we've got a university student and an automation specialist out in Dubai that have just teamed up, and they're working on some crazy, I won't go into it because she said to me in confidence, but they're working on some government level stuff right now for the education sector. Like, and they met in our community. Like, that there, you could give me $1 million tomorrow, right? And you'll never be able to make me feel more proud than that.
Mm. I mean, make it 51 if possible. Put me through the vetting process.
Hey, you're in. Don't worry about it. You're in.
It sounds amazing. I mean, definitely something I'm looking for. Like, I got a question for you on a personal level. I see that you guys are based in the UK and the US, and something Chris Williamson always talks about is like this very optimistic attitude that we see in this like in a US environment, the US tech space, where people are really hopeful about the future and they're really supportive of people with dreams and ambitions and stuff like that. And I think the UK is kind of held down by this kind of like tall poppy gets cut syndrome. Have you noticed like a shift in the attitude from being like having US partners, being US based? Like, are you still seeing this kind of like negativity in the UK space? Is that something that you guys are trying to change?
Yeah, 100%. You asked me the wrong question here because I hate this country. Like, the biggest problem that this country's got is that no one trusts the government anymore. No one trusts them to do the right thing. So just no one votes because everyone's just given up on it. It's a failed system that needs upheaval at the highest order. I do believe that there's going to be government assisted AIs in the future, so that you can't, this level of transparency that we've had a problem with for the past 5-10 years with government is gone. It's all going to be on the table. But again, that's down to higher powers and whether they allow that. But there's definitely, you've seen it with Dubai as well, right? Like, don't get me wrong, America, Dubai, predominantly Delaware or Wyoming, 0% corporation tax. That's why everyone's going there, right? And then obviously Dubai, 0% income tax. So there is those that people look at for a reason as well, but I think that they just genuinely support it more. Like, there's more funding going to it. Like, over here, it ends this Friday, but the only government grant they've done for AI is a $6.5 million grant. It's not quite 40 billion, is it? But a
No.
$6.5 million grant to help SMBs become educated on AI. Like Accenture, the number one consulting company in the UK, charge about 150 grand for that service. So there's only $6.4 million in the pot. That's like 30 clients. It's not a lot of people, and that's the only assistance we've seen. Like, and I think the US, their approach to alignment's different. Obviously, every AI model that we're utilizing today is US based. So they'll be the ones that create governance that I think we replicate. The European governance, I don't think we will. I think it's too draconian for us. I don't know why we would ever put ourselves through that. There'd be a lot of rebuke, especially because a lot of these companies in the US have come to the UK to establish base because they think we're more neutral than the EU. So we've got OpenAI offices here, we've got Stability AI offices here, we've got Midjourney offices here. There's a lot that's come over here. When Rishi was Prime Minister, because he was AI. I'm not sure Kia's going to have the same approach. I don't follow either one side, by the way. I think they're both idiots. Best of a bad situation. But again, I think a lot of people have that viewpoint, is that it's a best of a bad bunch, and that there is more opportunity in these places, without a doubt. America's always been the land of the opportunity, the land of the free. Like, I think a lot of people have always looked at it from that sector, and obviously the last 2 years, Silicon Valley, they are the tech hub right now.
Yeah. No,
So
I'm.
yeah, I think so. Ours was merely the reason why we went for it is because we had the luxury of having an American co-partner. Like, one, I've always wanted to live in America at some point anyway, so it's like if we've got a company over there, it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
And two, Louisiana's where we're based. We could have gone Wyoming, we could have gone Delaware, we could have gone to these 0% corporation places, but why? When we've got someone that lives in Louisiana that can file through his state, file from his address, like all of this sort of stuff, we don't then need to go and rent a property in Delaware that's going to sit empty for a year. Like, that doesn't make sense to us. So we just went there. And then essentially we have a UK holding company, and then that's how we pay ourselves.
Do you see yourself in the US long term?
Depends on what fiance says. I could, because like I like to travel, I like nature. Over here, I've seen it all, mate. I've got a camper van, so it's like I've been to a lot of remote places, Cornwall, Dorset, Scotland, here, there, all of that sort of stuff. So there's just more terrain over there and more opportunity, like you say. Every state is different. Like here, yeah, I could go into Europe, I could go into Spain, I could go into Portugal, I could go into, they're all the same to me. I've been to all of them loads of times. Like, it's not quite as different. Like, I like America because you can go to a mountain and then you can go to a desert and then you can go to a fucking snowy resort. Like, really weird, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, for all the shit America gets regarding like their healthcare system, their education system, stuff like that, like there's also a lot of amazing opportunity and like really positive reactions. Like I noticed, I spent a decent amount of time in the US. We're based in Austin as a company. I'm over there like a couple times a year and stuff. And I came back recently to Scotland. I was traveling for 2.5 years, and I got back, and people were like, "How's the US?" And they were like, "Oh, I hate people from the US. Like, don't really like Americans and stuff." And I'm like, I think you just see Americans on TV. Like you actually meet Americans in person or like over calls. They are so optimistic, high energy, enthusiastic, like lovely fucking people. You spend time over there, people are so fucking friendly. And
Yeah,
we've just been fed this information online, like this disinformation online, about who they are and what they do. So, I mean, it's definitely where I see myself long term in terms of opportunity, in terms of people, in terms of environment. I'm much the same as you, like very into my traveling and exploring as well. And there's just so much to do. There's such a vast
yeah,
variety of landscapes.
I totally agree.
Um,
Totally agree. I would live there personally. If you're asking just me, I would live there full time. I would have done that 5 years ago. But
yeah,
my sister already lives in Ohio. She's married out there, so she's already an American citizen and all that sort of stuff. It's taken she's been there like 10 years now. So it's one of those where I've always looked at it and gone, oh man, that is a different life, that in it. Like it's completely different to here. And I think they get a bad rap. I don't think people have the equilibrium to be able to actually weigh things up.
yeah,
Like Everyone's like, oh, everyone gets shot over there. I've lost 7 friends in the last 4 years to knife crime. Like, I could sit there and say the exact same thing about this country. So who am I to say that everyone gets shot over there? People get stabbed over here, right? If you want to go to a matter of fucking arguments, I'd rather be shot than stabbed. Personally,
Yeah.
it's a scary, it's a grievous crime that is. That is looking another man dead in the eyes. It's disgusting, and that worries me for this country. I've only seen it get worse, especially in London. It's where I'm at. Like, can't wear one of them in London. You'll get hurt, like your hand chopped off type of hurt. And it's like, what happened to this country? Like, I don't know. But yeah, America's this far enough apart. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's still the problems, the isolated issues, but I think a sitcom culture has made it worse than it is. Kardashians, because everyone's watched over here, is like, oh, that's what all Americans are like. They're just superstitious, like, superficial, and all this sort of stuff. No, go to Essex. It's the same here. Like, there's a bad rep for it, and there's a stereotype to it that I think needs to be broken. I watched a video from a French national, them going around Paris, basically saying, "What do you think of Americans?" And all of them were like, "Nah, they're just stupid. They don't know anything. They've got," and it's like, have you ever been to America? No. Every single one of them. Have you ever been to America? No. And it's like, then how do you have an opinion? Where does that even come from? And like the whole healthcare thing, we pay for healthcare too. We pay taxes. We pay national insurance. When I was in film, I was in a 46% tax bracket. I paid for my shit. It costs a lot of money, right? So paying for insurance in America, $500, $600 a month, I was paying more than that in national insurance over here. So it's like, there really isn't that much. They just have a different structure. Like, if you don't have the insurance, then yeah, you're talking thousands, right? But it's the same as just paying your taxes over here. You get a certain level of healthcare. It's just packaged differently.
Yeah. Nah, it's interesting. I'm sure we could probably talk about this for hours, but I want to finish off our conversation with, I think we could finish off with AI, but I want to finish off with a bit of a weird question, if that's all right with you.
Sure.
I don't think we've had a regular conversation here at all, so
No, I don't think we ever will, Liam. I'm not a regular kind of guy.
Let's keep it weird, right? So I was doing my research on you, and you've fallen into a similar trap to myself. So I type in Ben Etherington to Google, and it turns out you're actually a famous poet and author and spoken word person, right? And I fall into a similar thing. So my name's Liam Lawson, and that turns out that's an F1 driver, right? And I've got on calls before, and they've been like, "Oh, surprised! Like I didn't know like an F1 driver was running an AI business as well." Like, it comes up all the time, especially with Drive to Survive. So my question for you is, how are you going to overcome famous poet and author Ben Etherington on the Google rankings? What's your plan?
Speak more in public.
Right.
I've already been invited to a few conferences next year to take up a panel, speak with some individuals. I think it's all about just fucking making a name for myself. And this is what you're starting to see now, right? Is the whole social brand side of things. My social brand has grown, being part of the Founders Forge. It's grown inside a chamber, like an echo chamber, right? Is that everyone there knows me, but that isn't going to help me get out to the world. I've also got 2 people to get past. There's a famous cameraman that worked on the same film as me as well. And I was like, what the fuck? I'm a cameraman? And then I got to the construction bit. I was like, oh no, that's me. I don't know who the other Ben Etherington guy is. But yeah, I think it's more about speaking publicly. And the thing that I would be proud of is being one of the people in the debate speaking about the future. I speak in depth with Emad. Do you know Emad Mostak?
I know who he is. I don't know him personally.
So I speak with him a lot, and he is so fucking inspiring. It's unreal. Like,
could you get some context to the audience quickly?
So Emad Mostak is the ex-CEO and founder of Stability AI. He started Stable Diffusion and all of those sort of models. He ran it for over 3 years, and then I believe, I'm not going to go too deep into it because he's my pal, but I believe there was some money issues. They were leaking from somewhere, right? And I'm not sure how, but I think it was just they were spending too much money on the compute itself. I don't think they forecasted for how long that they were going to be able to sustain their current makeup of how much they were progressing with the chip usage that they had. So they ended up, I think he allowed it to slip to the point where they basically not pushed on him out, but he basically said, look, I'm going to step down and let someone else take this position. Since then, he's done a lot of speeches with Peter Diamandis, the Moonshots conferences. He does a lot of AI governance conversation, sovereign AIs, world AIs. How are we going to deal with the UBI discussion and stuff like that? And that type of conversation's really, really up my street because no one talks about it. It's a 10-step ahead conversation that people need to be having now because this is going to catch up really quick. Like, we need to be talking about these questions here because right now we're doing this and no one's even looking at it. They're like, it's creeping up on us, but when's it going to creep up? And then it will hit like a ton of bricks. So Imad Mostak is that guy. He speaks really well. Like, I would love to be able to speak as eloquently as he can. Just some of the words he uses is like, this guy's a poet, right? But
You and me both.
yeah, but essentially life-changing work. That's what I aspire to rank higher than the author and poet PhD. My mate, so I looked him up the other day and my business partner turned around and goes, mate, if you squint, you can kind of see you there. I was like, well, because he's got a beard and curly hair. Yeah, great. Good job. But yeah, so I think taking a little bit out of that inspiration from Emad, he's always sending me pictures of the X Prize that him and Elon Musk had, which was essentially Malawi. They've taken a load of old smartphones and then uploaded them with Llama, new operating systems. But now every kid in Malawi in this education program has their own AI, and their rate of education is being skyrocketing. Right, so you're going to be educating parts of the world that don't even have internet. That's the power. Is that the power of AI is touching corners of the globe the internet hasn't even touched yet.
And I think you summarised it really well in 3 words: life-changing work. And that's a good thing to finish on. With that being said, I want to thank you for taking the time. I'm glad we got to this. I am absolutely positive we'll be in consistent contact from here on out. I've really enjoyed this conversation. For people that want to speak to you, learn more about your business and stuff, how do they kind of get in touch and find you?
Hit me up on LinkedIn. Obviously, that's how you found me. So you can hit me up on LinkedIn. My email is ben@webforgedevelopment.tech. Feel free to shoot me an email over. And also check us out on School. Check the free one out. We'll vet the process. If we think that you come in and you meet a good candidacy or you really, really want to join, feel free to drop one of us a DM, drop Liam a DM, whatever that may be, and we'll get it sorted out. And again, Liam will be in there, so come say hello to him.
Perfect. Appreciate your time, man.
Appreciate you too, brother. Thank you for the conversation.